Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Very good morning and welcome to the Swiss Pavilion. It's a pleasure to host you this morning. I know it's Saturday at 11 a.m. and also 8 a.m. for our colleagues back in Switzerland and Italy watching us live. A warm greeting to you also. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Dante Darini. I am project manager here at the Swiss Pavilion and especially working for an agency called SwissNex here at the Pavilion. SwissNex is an agency of the Swiss State Secretariat of Education, Research, Innovation, promoting Swiss universities, startups, and innovative companies internationally, and also allowing them to connect with equivalents from the highest innovative hotspots in the world. And as you know, Expo 2020, the UAE, Dubai, is one of these hotspots. And for us, we have been enabling these connections between actors from Switzerland, from UAE and the entire world. And today is a very special day because it is our last event here at Expo. And we're going to finish with a very special event. And we're very grateful for you to tune in and watch us. We started an event back in November where we hosted Dr. Patrick Michel about cultural heritage and tolerance. And he liked us so much that he decided to come back. And now we are here presenting his research, presenting the collaboration between our different partners and friends here. And this is what we will be doing today. And so, once more, thank you very much for tuning in. To quote Steve Berry, a very famous American writer, a concerted effort to preserve our heritage is a vital link to our cultural, educational, aesthetic, inspirational, and economic legacies. All of the things that quite literally make us who we are. So as you know, cultural heritage is a vital part of human necessities, is a vital part of us, and is extremely important. And during this event, we will look at cultural heritage and how to promote it from an educational perspective, a social pedagogical perspective. And we'll be doing so by presenting the work of Dr. Patrick Michel from the University of Lausanne, and more specifically his work around the digitalization of the temple of Baal Shamin in Palmyra in Syria, which was destroyed unfortunately in 2015. And the temple was recreated digitally based on the archives of a Swiss archaeologist, Paul Collart, and it has been recreated digitally, but also putting forward these this collaboration with different partners, and also looking at the social pedagogical ways of putting forward this project, working with local communities, working with the people who were affected by this. And so we will be looking at this right now. I'd like to greet Mr. Ismail Al-Hamadi from the UAE Ministry of Culture and Education. Thank you, Culture, and thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you very much, sir. So, before we start with the keynote of Dr. Patrick Michel, I am going to present what we'll be looking at today. So we will look at why is the Collart-Palmyre project relevant, and then afterwards we will be joined by our friends online from the IULM University in Milan, and also the InZone Learning Center of the University of Geneva. And we will then open up the discussion with special panelists, Zaki Aslan from ICCROM, Esra from the ICRC, and Grazia Tucci from the Università degli Studi di Firenze. So, without further ado, I'd like to call Dr. Patrick Michel to the stage to give us a keynote on the Collart-Palmyre project. Patrick, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Dante, for the introduction. So the topic of today is about memory and memories of Palmyra, and why is this project, the Collart-Palmyre project of the University of Geneva, relevant? to the topic. So first of all, I just would like to recall the position and very shortly the history of Palmyra as one of the main spots on one of the Silk Roads that you see here on the map on the screen. So this Silk Road leading from China to the Mediterranean Sea, pathing through Palmyra when you can continue this road by sea or on the land by nowadays Turkey. So that's the reason why basically this town was so rich and important, and this is also the reason why it was a real multicultural hub on the Silk Roads. So for the history and the importance of the site of Palmyra for Syria, it is relevant to say that it was the most important touristic attraction of Syria and the most important archaeological site. It existed only back to the 3rd millennium BC, thanks to this oasis with the spring called Efqa, and this is the reason why this town and this civilization flourished during Bronze Age and then during the Hellenistic and Roman time. So we will focus briefly today on the Baal Shamin temple. Baal Shamin temple was important because Baal Shamin means the Lord of the skies. So he was like the storm god or the celestial god that was worshipped in order to have rain for agriculture. So this is, do I have a pointer? Yep, sorry. So this is the temple. Oh, okay, you don't see it. Oh, this is the temple, and the temple was excavated by the Swiss archaeologist called Paul Collart, who was a professor at the university where I do teach today. So after his death, so this is what happened in 2015, so August 2015, because of Daesh, the whole sanctuary was totally blown up. Here you have a black and white picture showing what kind of documentation we have in the archive. So Paul Collart, after his death, the family of Paul Collart after his death decided to give to the university all his archive. What do we have in the archive? So we have thousands of black and white pictures giving access to every single piece of the architecture of the monument and the decoration. And we also have hundreds of plans, black and white plans. And so we decided to create a 3D model. So we did basically a photogrammetry using hundreds of black and white pictures. You see here the process when you mix all the pictures together to be able to produce a 3D model. So that was done thanks to, in collaboration with a startup called ICRC in Paris. And here, if you can just launch the video, please, you will see the virtual anastylosis, so the reconstruction when you identify the blocks on the ground and you are able to reconstruct the temple. So this was very important for us because it was a way to keep the memory of the monument that doesn't exist anymore. And we didn't produce new data, we used the archaeological archive and the data that we have in order to keep this memory. So you see here now the result. It's another video. This is the most accurate 3D model of the Baal Shamin temple you can find because we use the documentation. So it's not that we used random pictures made by tourists, for example, but this is the work of Paul Collart that has been digitized in order to produce the 3D model. It's 61 million polygons, so it's a very, very high resolution, and you see that the outside of the temple and the inside of the temple was modeled. So now you can access to this model on an open line database in the platform, and what you see here is that you have some point of interest that you can click on it, and then you have like pop-up windows. For here, for example, at the entrance of the temple, you have a Greek inscription. So when you go on the platform online, you can click on the inscription, and then you will see first the picture of it, and then the translation and all the information. So it gives you access to the whole archive without going to the University of Lausanne, even if you are most welcome if you want to come and visit us there, of course. So that was a very important way in order to keep not only the memory but the several identities linked to the monument. thanks to a partnership with Ubisoft and the Institut du Monde Arabe in Paris, we also created a VR experience. So you have the possibility to wear glasses and to visit the temple as it was before the destruction. But what is the meaning of such a project if we don't think about the cultural memory and how we can reach local communities in order to share and to transmit this cultural heritage to keep the memory for further generation? This is what we did by publishing this book we will present to you today, the brochure in Arabic that tells the history of Palmyra and that insists on the multicultural identity of Palmyra as a very important point on the Silk Road. So we first had some workshop with the program called Dealing with the Past with UNDP Syria. Then we still are working in Syria with the Day After program, and then the collaboration that will be presented today with InZone in the Azraq camp of Jordan. We also will have online a sociologist that work for us in order to conduct a sociological study to see how people felt, how Syrian people felt about the work we have developed. So basically here, what is the story? I told you that Palmyra was very important on the Silk Road. Archaeologists were able to demonstrate that some of the motifs found on the textile in the tombs, so for the death in the tombs of Palmyra, when one of the motifs was very fashioned on cloth, it was reused in order to decorate for the decoration on architecture of the temple. This is what you see here. You have the cloth, a fragment, the drawing, and how the same drawing was reused for the decoration of the temple. So it means that the motif on the textile was part of the iconography shared in Palmyra in order to decorate the temple. So what we did, we created the first series of workshop that was tested first at MIT Future Heritage Lab in Boston, recalling the history of the caravans and the multiculturality of the Silk Road, and we created a motif that can be used for embroidery. And by performing the embroidery, you link together tangible and intangible heritage, and you give the possibility for people to perform the memory. It's not only listening or trying to recall a memory, but it's a real way by producing an artifact to perform the art and to perform the memory, and then to keep with you the artifact that you have created in order this object, this artifact, to be the materialization of this memory. So it's a way to recall the memory not only by looking at pictures or 3D model, but a way to really perform this memory. And this is the first workshop that is explained in the booklet that we are going to present. And you see that because of the pandemic, we did all the workshop online with the people in Azraq, and we really hope that all this workshop will go on. So now we switch to the next, when I will explain you more in detail what is here inside, and then you will have a copy that you can keep with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. So now indeed we will discover a bit more about this booklet. We have had Patrick here. I'd also like to present our speaker live from Italy, Mrs. Gioia Zenoni, who has a degree in ancient science from the University of Milan, and who participated in the Italian Syrian mission in Palmyra in Syria, in the archaeological excavations and findings. And she is collaborating in teaching activities in the field of enhancement of archaeological heritage at the IULM University. And for those, just to give you more information, the IULM is the University Institute for Modern Languages of Milan, and has a big specialization on language and communication to reflect teaching in both languages in these fields. So, Mrs. Gioia Zenoni, the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning everybody, and thanks to the Swiss Pavilion for inviting me. So, okay. Okay, in a while I will share my screen. Is it okay for you? Okay. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Just send a message in the chat, maybe.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So yes, Gioia, Patrick will present a bit more the booklet, and then afterwards you'll be able to speak and develop your perspective.
Okay, sorry. So this is the booklet. So the next slide, sorry. Okay, so you see here what we did here inside. You first have a map of the site of Palmyra and a chronology that can be used by also teenagers and students to learn about their own history. And then this is what have been done with our Italian colleagues. We added drawings and schemes to give more pictures in this booklet. And then you see how it is presented about the importance of cultural heritage. So you have brief text, and all these texts have been reviewed by Syrian refugees in Azraq. So we first produced this booklet, and then we worked together with them saying, okay, what is useful? What should we change? Do you want to change the vocabulary? Do you want to add more information? And this is now the result. And here you have this pattern, the motif that had been used for embroidery. So here you have a piece, a real artifact from the Baal Shamin temple with a tree of life. And here you have the pattern that have been used for the workshop for embroidery. And here you see some of this workshop when they produce like small pochettes. And what is very interesting that you see that embroidery and sewing in the Middle East is no problem for men, women, and children, obviously. So you have here just to show you how it was performed there. And in the different cities in Syria and in Azraq when we did this project. So we had more than 35 people participating. We had a waiting list. We were not able to bring all the people at the same time, but so that's the reason why we hope this workshop will continue. What was very interesting also for us is that we had a very nice feedback from the people. So they said it is very useful to create something, then we have something to show, and we also have the possibility in this workshop to work with the children and to transmit this heritage. And this is the typical example of building together tangible and intangible heritage. So I finish here, and now I give the floor to my colleague who will explain another part of the booklet and how we collaborate together with the Italian colleagues. So thank you. Grazie mille, Gioia. It's now your turn.
Thank you, everybody, for being there today. So I will start sharing my screen in order to present you what we did in this project. Okay, so in the booklet, you will find a section dedicated to the perception of the heritage by the local communities, or better, by the young generation of Syrian people that are now displaced. We collected opinions and feelings during a workshop of digital art carried out by the HumanLab of University during the autumn 2021. I would like to express my gratitude, first of all, to Dr. Michel, to the University of Lausanne, and to the Association Paul Collart-Palmyre for giving us this precious opportunity of collaboration, and to Emanuela, Sebastiani, Lupisani, Abdallah Salim, Omran Mansour, and Mohamed Ba for the great help in the organization and in the development of the workshop in the InZone Learning Hub of the University of Geneva, located in Azraq refugee camp. Thanks to all the Syrian students for their enthusiastic participation also. And last but not least, thanks to Barbara Sant'Agostini, the art therapist that led the workshop, and that was also the artistic and graphic project curator of the booklet. Of course, I must be grateful also to my university that supported all the initiatives empowering the research in the field of heritage education and aimed to make cultural heritage a means for constructing peace. Our International Affairs Office, directed by Roberto Raseto, is working hard on this topic. Our involvement in the archaeology of Palmyra started more than 10 years ago, when I participated to the Syro-Italian mission directed by Professor Maria Teresa Grassi and Walid Al-Assad. I worked together with Professor Giovanna Rocca, charged of the study of all the Greek texts brought to light during the excavation in the southwest quarter. Giovanna Rocca is also the director of the HumanLab, a research center focused on communication strategies for humanities. In the last 3 years, HumanLab developed many initiatives to offer the results of the researches on Palmyra to a wider public. First of all, a digital exhibition named The Extraordinary Stories of Palmyra, devoted to the memory of Professor Grassi and inspired by her book. This exhibition, realized with Fondazione Terra Santa and supported by the network of the Italian Universities for Peace, is still accessible to the link you see in the flyer, in the bottom left, and has now been transformed in a true physical exhibition that will travel around Italy. We also produce some video pills on the monuments of Palmyra that are available on Dailymotion. Okay, then next slide. It's about public participation. The collaboration with the project Collart-Palmyre, in fact, for the new edition of the booklet has been the occasion to test the methodology of public participation in the editorial process of an archaeological booklet with educational purpose. To gain this goal, we carried out for a group of young Syrians aged 18-25 living in Azraq a workshop of digital art inspired by the history and the monuments of the more famous archaeological site of Syria. And we collected all their feedbacks on this topic in order to adapt the graphics and the iconographic system of the booklet to their needs. For example, we tried to convert into icons some easily recognizable monuments, such as the arch, the temples of Bel and Baal Shamin, the tower tombs, and the theater that you will find in the map, but also some less known objects, such as the eagle on the lintel from the sanctuary of Baal Shamin, brought to light by Collart in the 50s, or this wonderful female head now preserved in the Museum of Milan. The figures are also aimed to remember the close connection between the work of the archaeologists and what we know about the history of the site and the importance of the archaeological materials, so statues, pottery, coins, small finds, and inscriptions, to reconstruct this history and to give a full-rounded interpretation of the past. This is relevant especially today, that we have almost lost a direct physical contact with these materials. Otherwise, what of Palmyra remains accessible to the local community and to people all around the world are mainly pictures. So, in our workshop, we moved from these pictures and played with them, paying a special attention on the meaning of those monuments that have been destructed, thus becoming iconic. The tomb of Erebel, the Tetrapylon, the temple of Baal Shamin, the Great Colonnade, the Arch, the temple of Bel, and the theater. In fact, even if these monuments are no more visible or can be appreciated only through a 3D model, they continue to live, carrying on the messages that the ancient inhabitants of the city left to their successor. The memory of this ancient melting pot is made of a huge amount of stories concerning peace and dialogue between different cultures, and still speaks to the people all around the world. Everyone can assume a different meaning according to personal feelings and to a specific cultural background. What's the meaning of this heritage for the young Syrians? We invited them to give an answer through digital art, art of the present, illustrating the perception, the ideas and the emotions inspired by the art of the past, and serving as a means to imagine the future. Photography is a kind of art. Through photography, we can mix past and present, what we see and what we think. Photography helps to keep memory of a moment, to evoke the feeling of the fresh breeze among the palm trees of the oasis, for example, while digital photo composition techniques allow to give a personal interpretation of this memory. Through digital collages, we can play with images, exploring the intangible and giving a visual consistency to the products of our imagination. Here you can see an example of an archaeological you can see an example of an archaeological collage that is analogical on an old Syrian banknote. Like using a camera zoom during the creation of a collage, we can emphasize a detail and create a narrative around it. So, even if today Palmyra seems like an unreachable and forgotten place, digital tools allow us to zoom around it with a quick change of perspective. I change the slide, and then I show you what the digital tools we used during the workshop in the weekly Zoom meetings, when the students learn to use free open source digital tools for visual communication, Mural, and for photo composition, GIMP. On Mural, they filled a huge dashboard presenting themselves through images and took confidence with their teamwork on a visual collaboration platform. We put there all the available photos, some keywords, some useful links to digital archives, and the agenda of the workshop. And then I show you GIMP, a free and open source photo composition software where every student freely employed his artistic touch to express his perception of the heritage of Palmyra, combining the images of the monuments before their destruction with other symbols and emotional elements to create a surreal landscape, both expressing present feelings of the students about themselves and their country home, and formulating their hope for the future. So let me introduce you the gallery of their works that you will find in the special section of the booklet named Images and Imagination. To represent what she calls the land of civilizations, Batul Ehsan Al-Khalil created a melting pot of iconic monuments from the world. The monumental arch of Palmyra is still standing and embraces the liberty enlightening the world, who used to welcome people arriving in New York from the east, while a group of tourists admires it standing between the Giza pyramids in the foreground and the Eiffel Tower in the background. Batul observed that Palmyra deserves more than what it suffers in terms of destruction and devastation. My work is an attempt to see it in the best way. Then Fatima Khalif Al-Dwesh produced an unusual winter landscape of Palmyra, highlighting some elements of the Bedouin culture that still nowadays are relevant to qualify the city. A hunting falcon is standing on the roof of the Tower Tomb of El Abel, blown up in 2015. And a typical desert plant, a cactus, is just beside it. Then we have a tent, similar to those hosting the Bedouins who used to live close to the archaeological site, like the child in the foreground. Fatima imagines that he will spend some time talking and playing with the tourists on the right, and that, in case of rain, the tower will be a safe shelter for both. The picture by Hiba Issa Al-Saleh is full of pathos. She's from Palmyra, so she wanted to recreate the atmosphere of the places of her childhood. That's why in the sky, over the arch, we can see some colored balloons. On the foreground, a statue of the Queen Zenobia by the most distinguished female sculptor in America during the 19th century, named Harriet Hosmer, recalls the pride of the modern inhabitants of Palmyra for the glorious legacy she left them. Some pigeons are flying over her crown, waiting for peace. Nidal Muhammad Al-Ammar entitled her work Palmyra in the Past, Present and Future, combining elements representing different aspects of Palmyra in different times. The prestige of its history and of its amazing monuments, such as the theater, the violence of the destruction, and the hope for a future where modernity combines with the traditional lifestyle, in a desert full of people and crossed by camels, carts and tourists. Water in the foreground indicates that life can return to the land of Palmyra again. Also, Omar Farhan al-Zubi chose to populate the great colonnade street with tourists, journalists and press photographers from different countries around the world. He hopes that they could visit Palmyra again. Omar lived not so far from Palmyra, close to Homs, and his dream is to study journalism and the media in order to be able to dialogue with the people and convey them pictures and news about its cultural heritage. In his picture, he also puts some elements suggesting the free circulation of people and informations. A seagull, symbol of freedom, a camel, symbol of the ancient means of transportation, and a carrier pigeon, once upon a time used to exchange messages. Last, we have a very romantic picture by Mansour Mahmoud Al-Khatib that commented our work with these words. With my humble artistic touch, I made this representation of the vivid image that fills my eyes when the word Palmyra comes to mind. Palm trees are very important to Palmyra. In fact, you can find them also in its name. The sunset is an essential in our life. Its suggested light would play a great difference in our perception of reality, making it more beautiful. So, with the eyes full of these sweet shadows, we cannot but agree with Mansour. We need beauty in our lives, especially when we are passing through hard times. We cannot be sure that beauty will save the world, as Dostoevsky claimed, but it's our duty to look for it, filling our imagination and our creative power with precious memories and with beautiful hopes for the future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Gioia. Grazie mille. And I'd like to also thank our colleagues from the Italian Pavilion who have been collaborating with us. And so I'm very grateful to have this beautiful collaboration here at Expo 2020. Before we move on to the implementation phase of the project, I would like to open the floor for a few questions about the booklet and to see if you have any comments about this. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay, no worries. So we're going to move forward, and now we're going to look at the implementation of this project here. And so we are lucky to have Mr. Omran Mansour and Mr. Malik Abdeen from CARE International, who are going to share more information live from the Azraq refugee camp. And we also have Mrs. Emanuela Sebastiani from InZone Center of the University of Geneva. And InZone has been developing digital learning solutions for humanitarian settings, interpreting these vital needs of promoting culture, especially in refugee settings. And then afterwards we will close with comments from Mrs. Dr. Jenny Maggi, also from the University of Geneva and its Department of Sociology. And then she'll be giving us a social pedagogical, I can't manage this word, I'm very sorry, social pedagogical look at the entire project. So, perhaps we can start with Mr. Omran Mansour and Mr. Abdeen live from the Azraq refugee camp. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thank you. Hello everyone, it's my pleasure to be with you today to talk about this extraordinary experience. Yeah, the idea of the workshops is to give a general overview about Palmyra and its history and the connection with the traditional local embroidery and share the historical findings about the link between the architectural heritage and local craftsmanship tradition. This would give the Syrian refugees the opportunity of reclaiming the important part of their heritage through the means of art. The other part of the workshop aims to disseminate the history of Palmyra and its preservation through digital means and the technology. and how we can save the memory of Palmyra and present it for our generations and the future generations. Those workshops were meant to be face-to-face. However, because of the COVID-19 restrictions, Lausanne team couldn't come to the camp, and we had to work on online with all the challenges that we faced, technical challenge, and other language challenge. However, we could make it. On the ground, once we had announced for the workshop, we received too many applications for people who were interested in participating. We thought at the beginning, we thought that most of those who would be interested in such a workshop would come for people who come originally from Palmyra. However, people from all of the regions of Syria and people from different age and gender groups showed interest. The importance of this workshop is that it works on reconstructing the memory of Palmyra in the Syrian refugees' conscience. People who participated in the workshop were delighted to see and learn about their own heritage, which has been lost or destroyed in the last decade. And they were astonished by how technology could rebuild what we have lost. And here comes the importance of technology and the 3D modeling and the VR technology, which enabled the participants to watch Palmyra and its monuments and the way they were moved by what they have seen. And you can see this on their faces while they were watching the Palmyra ruins and before and after destruction, and how the technology could rebuild the monuments once again as if it was a real one. And they expressed their admiration. How technology could help them to see it if it is real, or were there in real. And there were many people who didn't have the chance to go to Palmyra before, and they were. I'm one of them, and I saw it for the first time, and now I can talk about Palmyra as if I were there. Such workshops and such trainings or workshops that would not just preserve the heritage, but will tell the people and that you had a great history, you had a great heritage. You should know about it, learn about it, and connect it to the next generations. Thank you for all of you who participated and held in these workshops. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your intervention, and thank you very much for taking the time. Now, I would like to ask Mrs. Sebastiani to share more perspectives about the InZone project. So while we wait, as a reminder, InZone has been a key partner in the project and looking at pioneering innovative approaches to promote the digital elements of communities here.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you see my screen as well?
No, we can't.
There might be a technical problem. First of all, thank you very much. I would like to thank the Swiss Pavilion for inviting me, and also Patrick, Michel and his team at the University of Lausanne, Gioia, Zenoni and her team at the University, and Care International, our partners on the ground. As I said, there might be a technical problem because I cannot share my screen.
It should work now. We'll
Could
make
you
co-host.
confirm that you can see me or see my screen?
Still not, I'm afraid.
Not yet. I did have a quick presentation to show you. Shall I perhaps leave the floor to Malik from Care International and then see if I can solve the problem from my end? I apologize for this.
That's okay. Malik, yes, if you want to add more details, please go ahead. The age of Zoom calls.
My camera's on. Perhaps, if you agree, I can leave the floor to Malik and quickly see if I can solve the technical problem from my end. Would that be okay?
Of course. Malik, would you like to share a few words?
I apologize for this. Thank you.
Okay, Malik, can you hear us?
Yeah, good morning, and good afternoon to all. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
That's great. It's good to see you all. Good morning from Azraq Camp. I'm Malik Abdeen, the team leader for Care International in Azraq Camp, and I will do my briefing by showing you a video while talking over the situation in the camp and our collaboration for this project. So just a second and it will be ready.
Okay, Malik, we can see the video. Maybe you want to comment it? Malik, we have no sound. Would you like to comment the video?
Sorry, there is no sound?
No, but would you like to comment it? Share a few words while we look at the images?
Sorry, just a second. So the video is on, but there is no sound.
That's correct.
It is there. I don't know, can you share it from your side?
No, maybe we can skip the video. Would you like to share a few words?
Yeah, so thanks a lot. Apologies again for the technical problems. And so for Azraq Camp, I was intending to show you a video about a daily life of a refugee in an Azraq Camp. And our work as Care International started in the world in 1945, and we are mainly responding to crises and fighting poverty, empowering communities, and establishing partnerships. And partnerships is the key word here, where without having a partnership with the different entities, especially for InZone, nothing of this could have happened. So in the camp, our main mandate is mainly to provide community-based protection, community-based livelihood, basic needs services, higher education services, and other type of services that are beneficial for refugees on daily basis. But for this specific project, it's a refugee-led project that it started a couple of years ago, where we are providing as CARE International and InZone the space and the support for refugees, but from their side they are providing all kind of accessibility to technology, to innovation, supporting initiatives for community members, and on daily basis they are meeting in a safe space, having the opportunity to discuss and find solutions for their issues in the camp. So again, this partnership is a collaboration between different parties from InZone, CARE International, the government of Jordan, UNHCR, and other entities, who's thankfully supported this process and providing the space to everyone. For us, we are so proud as CARE in a refugee camp, in a harsh environment. It's in the desert, this camp, to have this product coming out of this place, taking into consideration the minimum availability of items, materials, and also internet connectivity. Maybe as you can see, the internet connectivity is not that great in Esra camp, and taking this into consideration, look at the great things the team did. So I only have to thank you all for attending this, and I'm ready for your questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Malik, for joining us live from the Esra camp. I'm not sure at this stage if you have any questions for... we have a question for the lady in front. Oh, I can also give you...
I can try to speak loud.
That's okay. Here you go.
I really liked hearing you say about the refugees having ownership of the project, not just being receivers of the project. I'd love to hear more about how that cooperation happened, either now or after Dr. Sebastiani's talk. And I'd love for us to try again to watch that video. I'd love the opportunity to see what daily life is like in the camp. And as a frequent Zoom user, I wonder if you try again sharing your screen and click the share sound box on the bottom left corner, and maybe that can help us again if we have time. As an audience member, I'd love to see that video. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can just spend 2 more minutes to see the video so you can share
Okay.
the screen again, and if there is no sound, you can just make...
Sure. So, Malik,
Thank you for asking. They could use the video in Esra camp for the presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Malik, would you like to try again? Maybe you can switch.
Yeah, sure, with pleasure. Just a second.
There's a switch, share audio.
Share audio.
At worst, you can also comment it.
Share sound. Here it is.
Yes.
Thanks a lot for this. Hello, this is Malik Abdeen from CARE International in Jordan. I'm the team leader for Esra Camp, and you are most welcome to this session. So for CARE International, we are operating worldwide since 1945, and we are responding to disasters and crises, empowering communities, establishing partnerships, and fighting poverty in more than 90 countries around the world. In Esra Camp in specific, a place where more than 40,000 refugees resides, we have a partnership with UNHCR and the government of Jordan to support the most vulnerable refugees and the total population of this camp with community-based protection, livelihood, basic needs, and communication with communities interventions that we are running mainly in partnership with the community itself. So community members are supporting each other using the community centers that we established through different type of activities that you can see on daily basis, from recreational to psychosocial, educational, and high education interventions, livelihood, vocational trainings, and plenty other type of activities that is taking place on daily basis in the 4 community centers that we are managing. So I have to highlight the importance of partnership, especially in responding to refugee needs. Our collaboration and partnership with InZone started a few years ago, and it provided a safe space for refugees not only to access education and higher education opportunities, but it's a space where refugees can bring their innovations, can bring their dreams and hopes and initiatives to support each other. They are gathering on daily basis in the space to discuss and bring solutions to issues that are taking place in their communities, and as well as they are connected through the different interventions with themselves as well as with the world. So I have to say a big thank you for the InZone team, Emma, Lou, and colleagues, and also for the refugees who's leading this process, Abdullah, Omran, and other colleagues who's working day and night to bring solutions to their communities, to educate also their communities, and they responded all the time through the different interventions. I still recall when COVID started, with the curfew, with the lockdowns all over the world, they remained active and they remained connected to their communities through solutions that they designed. And that was the great thing of having this team on board and having this facility and type of interventions. It's a space where it's not an activity that is taking place on daily basis, but it is a place where high coordination mechanisms is taking place, and the partnership is highlighted with community members. So thanks a lot. And Malik Abdeen was with you from Azraq Camp, and looking forward for your questions. Thank you.
على منصات عالمية مثل كورسيرا وأريزونا فيوتشر لير إلى ما شابه. الأمور هاي تمام. دوراتنا راح تكون باختصاصات عدة، اختصاصات أكاديمية، مثل في عندنا دورات طبية، دورات تمام. هون الرقم الشخصي.
Okay, thank you very much, Malik, for the video. We made it, but it was really worth it to have an insight into what is happening and the fruit of all of these efforts. I would like to see if Mrs. Sebastiani would like to... Oh, hello, Mrs. Sebastiani. Would you like to present briefly your view on the matter?
Of course. Good morning. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me. Can you see my screen?
We can even see you, even better.
Fantastic. Okay, I apologize for the technical problem earlier. As I said, a big thank you to Patrick, Michel and his team at the University of Lausanne, Gioia, Zenoni and her team at IULM, and a huge thank you to CARE International, our partners on the ground. So, as you may know, InZone has had the honor and pleasure of hosting the series of workshops on the Palmyra heritage at our learning center in Azraq, which you've just seen in the video. Now, I would like to quickly just explain who we are and what we do to facilitate access to higher education in Azraq and in general in fragile contexts, such as the refugee camp. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and hopefully you will be able to see the presentations. Just could you please confirm that you
Yes, we do.
See my screen?
Yes, we do.
Fantastic. So this is who we are, our students, of whom we're very proud. A bit of context. In the world, over 270 million people are on the move, and a large portion of them are forcibly displaced. There will be in the future an increasing number of climate refugees, and most of migrants are stranded in low and middle income countries where the state, the government, is unable to provide opportunities to access higher education. Now, the United Nations Higher Education for Refugees has an ambitious target, has set an ambitious target for 2030, which is to increase the number of young refugees accessing higher education. As you can see, in the world, the percentage is 30%, 37%, and it's actually only 3% for young refugees. So this is very ambitious, but we've got to start somewhere. InZone is an academic and humanitarian center of the University of Geneva. Our main objective really is to respond to the need, local need of building capacity by facilitating access to higher education. It's important to say that we work alongside the local communities and obviously alongside our operational partners in the ground, such as CARE International, and we do so respecting the international humanitarian principles. And what we do is to try and find innovative approaches that can combine experience, knowledge, and technology to provide really higher education opportunities to young refugees in refugee camps. The way we work is a little bit different from other universities in the world. We have created what we call a collaborative learning ecosystem, at the center of which are, of course, the students in the camps and a number of professional figures who work to provide opportunities to the students. Obviously, we have a learning center locally, but most of our academic collaborators work remotely. And we also have tutors that can help students online doing their work. Over the course of the past 10 years, we've been able to offer a range of subjects, study subjects for our students. As you can see, these are some examples from global health to humanitarian interpreting to education language skills, and of course, cultural heritage. And the Palmyra heritage workshops fall very much under this category. Lastly, I'd like to quickly show you where we operate at the moment. To the left, Azraq refugee camp in Jordan, and to the right, of course, Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya. So this was to explain what mission is and why we've been so happy to provide this particular higher education opportunity. And my colleague Omran Mansour from the local management team has already told you a little bit more about the workshops. So wrapping up, thank you very much to all of our partners, and thank you to the Swiss Pavilion for offering this opportunity.
Thank you very
Over
much.
to you.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Mrs. Sebastiani. And now to conclude this session, this part of the session, I would like to call Dr. Jenny Maggi, who is a senior lecturer at the Institute of Sociological Research of the University of Geneva, to give us a social side of the project. Dr. Maggi, are you with us?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes. Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I will share my screen. Huh? It's okay.
We see it.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So thank you very much for your invitation. And today I will talk about these sociological studies that was conducted among the diaspora, the Syrian diaspora, mainly based in Switzerland. So I will talk mainly about some results of the studies which are based on memories, identity, and transmission of cultural heritage among the Syrian diaspora. So this sociological study, has been commissioned by the University of Lausanne in 2020 in the framework of the exhibition Deepfakes that that is held now at the EPFL, and it has to be conducted among the Syrian diaspora, mainly based in the French part of Switzerland. And the aim was to engage in a reflexive and analytical approach around the social impacts of digital objects that virtually reproduces historical monuments. In this case, of course, the Temple of Balshamin. The focus of this short presentation is on three main aspects, three main results of this study, which was larger. And I will focus on the memories of Palmyra, on the links between the Syrian heritage and the cultural identity of the respondents, and also the capacity of the tree modeling to participate in the transmission of cultural heritage, especially to young generation. Oh, sorry, there's a problem. Yeah. If we talk about Palmyra as a place of memory, we have to stress that Palmyra represents for the diaspora an emblematic place of memory. And there is really a very strong link with pleasant emotion and memories, very often related to childhood of respondents, and that these memories are able to create a strong sense of cultural identity. In fact, Palmyra is considered by our respondent as, for instance, the cradle of humanity, the pride of Syria. So there are really very, very important images, memories, and representation which are linked with Palmyra, with the specific place of Palmyra. And Palmyra also symbolizes the cultural roots and the cultural identity, as well as the glorious past of Syria. It is also linked, of course, to the richness and the diversity of Syria's cultural roots. And which is quite interesting is that there is really this strong link with the history and symbols which are attached to the Queen Zenobia in terms of characteristics like strength, independence, and resilience. And if we turn now to the links between heritage and identity, we can say our results have shown that the Syrian heritage directly refers to one's own identity and cultural roots, and sometimes they are described as a mixture of diverse cultures. And this richness and diversity of Syrian heritage is seen as a source of pride with very positive effects in terms of identity. And what is also quite interesting is that the importance which is attributed to the Syrian heritage seems to have been multiplied by the exile and by the migration experience, but also by the destruction of the cultural heritage that has resulted from the conflicts, of course. And now I would like to just share with you some example of testimonial which is related to these aspects. And for instance, one respondent says, cultural heritage is where I come from, where I was born. It is very important to recognize myself. It is the basis. It is the basis of everything, of my understanding of life, of my eyes on the world. The cultural links are very important for me. Diversity is very important. We have the three most important religions on the planet. And the fact of the importance of the migration experience is from the other excerpts. Cultural and historical symbols became more important when you are abroad. So if we briefly turn to the transmission of cultural memory and heritage, we can say that the majority of respondents, even those who were quite perplexed after the virtual immersive experience, but everybody, there is really a consensus that everybody considers that the immersive experience is particularly well suited to participate in the transmission of cultural memory, especially to young generation. So it is very important for the valorization of the Syrian heritage and for the reconstruction of the identity of young people of the diaspora. It's really a very important link with education activities. It is very important in order to transmit more positive images of Syria than those which are normally conveyed, which were in the past especially, conveyed in the media. And it is also very important to raise awareness on the importance of cultural heritage and its preservation as a whole. So I will finish my presentation with two other examples of testimonials which is related to these aspects, and which are saying for new generations to rebuild an identity for them to be proud of, it is good, especially because the very young, the children who have left Syria only remember the violence and the atrocities. And the other excerpts is the younger generation needs to see something like that. The children, the majority who left, don't know the history of Syria anymore. If you do this for the children of the diaspora, it is good. If someone comes to talk to us about the beauty of the Syrian heritage, it is extraordinary. And for young people, it is important. They must not forget where they come from. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maggi, for joining us live from Geneva. Thank you very much. And now I feel a bit lonely here upstage. I'm alone, so I'm going to call our panelists. Before I do so, do we have any questions for our panelists online before we switch to the physical mode? No? Okay, so in this case, thank you very much for our panelists who joined us virtually. We will now switch to the physical mode, and I would like to invite our three very special speakers for today who will be joining us. First of all, I'd like to welcome Professor Grazia Tucci, who is here with us. It's her second time here at SwissNext. She was here in November in the panel. Professor Tucci is the head of the Geo-Collaborator of the Università degli Studi di Firenze, and has really looked at using geomatics and communication for cultural heritage. Grazia, it's a pleasure to have you once more with us.
It's a pleasure for me. Thank you for inviting me here.
My pleasure. Then our second speaker, we have Dr. Zaki Aslan, who is the Regional Director of ICCROM-Sharjah, and he's a specialist in cultural heritage conservation management and also in post-conflict reconstruction. Zaki, once more, it's also his second time, so a warm welcome back here at the Swiss Pavilion.
It's nice to be back also with the Grazia.
And then, last but not least, we have also a new friend that we've made, Mrs. Esra Sayhi from the ICRC, Delegate at the mission of the ICRC in UAE, in charge of partnerships. Esra, welcome.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So, we will then have brief presentations from the different panelists, and then I will share a few questions for us to start the debate. And then afterwards, I would like to open the floor to the audience. We have a small committee here, so I would like this to be interactive, so please don't hesitate to ask any questions. Perhaps we can start with you, Grazia. Would you like to share? So once more to highlight, so we have a specialist in the digital side of cultural heritage. We have a specialist in the post-conflict capacity building, and then a specialist on the humanitarian side. I think this is a very special combination for the discussion. But before we do so, dive into the questions. Grazia, I would like to give you the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Dante. May I have my presentation, please? I will try to be very quick. And how can I control it? Okay. And can you upload my presentation? I cannot see it now. Okay. So, I want to face this topic, digitalization and cultural heritage, from 2 points of view. One is a more scientific point of view, and the other is more related to the communication and public engagement and, let's say, dissemination. So a few days ago, I attended a workshop on heritage with Zaki again, on heritage reconstruction in Syria, and I was able to make some observation. There were many archaeologists and architects, and we know that they are increasingly using digitization technologies in their work. They are used to work on the field, and they always start from the acquired data for interpreting the traces left over time, reconstruct the history of the place, and planning their own intervention. So a lot of reason. The next step after the survey, and closely related to it, it is the interpretation, the attribution of a semantic value to the data. Survey without interpretation makes no sense. So why archaeologists and architects in the past years have tried to free themselves from the surveyors, and I am a surveyor. I don't think it's a dislike. Maybe in some cases it could be, but I think the answer is because the surveyors are so focused to measurement, they have not been able to interpret the need of archaeologists and architects. So for now, I take the blame for my category. Later, with the introduction of the digitization through laser scanner, photogrammetry, the simplification of the acquisition processes, and the new idea of democratization of culture through digital, restorers and archaeologists have begun to use these technologies massively. But since they don't have a methodological background on the measurement principle, they always feel uncomfortable, they feel a gap. So, what is the result? The 3D models are possible today in many ways, but the gap between surveyors and archaeologists and architects has not yet been bridged. It is not a question of creating barriers, but of creating new bridges. When we have to face complex surveys, the use of network compensation, numerical data processing becomes essential if you do not want to make the mistake of creating wrong models. Locally, the survey is always accurate, but when the building, the site is more complex, the error accumulates. So look at this, for example. This is a grotto, a manieristic grotto in Florence. Look, we are inside the system of the water. People cannot see normally these places, but this was useful for the restorers to understand how this old system worked in the past. So they can restore it, they can remake it, and they can reproduce not only the aesthetical part, but also the mechanism of the past. Or, for example, Look at this. I cannot move my... Okay, this is a 3D model of a statue, but I cannot manage it. You can move it, and you can have also the thematic aspect, the thematic survey on it. Or like this. This is a part of the wall of Pisa. Or this one is also a frieze in Pistoia, and as you can see here, they can study the different part of the how do you call it, of the decay and of the material or the intervention. This, for example, is pulpit in Pistoia, and it is very complicated, and they are trying to understand how it has been built when they moved from one side to another. So they try to understand, the researchers are trying to understand how it has constructed. And this is just because there are a lot of projects of digitization, SCIARC, ICRC, but it is very important to understand what's the purpose of this project. Because, if you make a question and you need an answer, sometimes it's not the right way, because they are doing something like National Geographic Society did in the past, but in 3D model. This is important, but we have to know what's the aim. That's it. So, how to bridge the gap? With the training, with education. To overcome these problems, it is necessary to focus on adequate educational program. Now the second aspect. Few minutes and I will finish. Promotion. Digital data is not just for documentation and preservation, but can be used to promote cultural heritage and create industry initiatives. Nowadays, the world of knowledge is characterized by contamination, cross-fertilization, and also the digital data takes on new meanings and uses. We have seen the baptistry before. No, we didn't see it. I don't know. Anyway, but some data that we collected for a scientific purpose were used in a theater for a performance on Dante. And okay. And this is very interesting, the creation of new languages and new roots, but also the possibility of make people more aware, more informed, and closer to the cultural heritage. You look, they started from the original shape, the digitalized shape, and they made a new sculpture, like if they crushed, they want to destroy, like a car. This is just a new language. Or we saw the project that we saw before, where was something like this one in the Rilke Museum, where the young people can collect the data and they can, let's say, joke with them. They can make a joke. They can make some product, and this is a way to be more aware of the culture. Okay, another application. I don't have. Okay, maybe I don't have another application. You cut it, okay? But you did good work, okay? I know because I sent them 30 slides, so they told me that it was enough. But okay, the last idea is that we are preparing a project here with the Italian Pavilion about courses here, a new courses just focused on these topics. That means digitalization for scientific purposes and digitalization for new creative project. And of course, when you work on the field like Patrick did in Palmyra, you have a lot of problems and you have a lot of aiming, for example, in this area of conflict. And we need to document these building these sites, not only after, but also before. So, and we need to give them a semantic authentic data, we need to propose some solution, and we know that digitalization will be the basis from which we have to start. So this school that we are preparing has the support of ICOMOS, of SIPA, that is a specific organization, international organization on documentation, and also I hope with ICROM, we were discussing before with Zaki, and it would be very nice because we will have a part online and also a part on the field with some workshop here with some real case studies. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Grazia. I think this is a nice bridge to then capacity building and switching to Zaki from ICROM. Zaki, when you hear this, when you hear also the project done at starting from Bashamin and then building up and giving birth to such initiatives through the booklet, from an ICROM point of view, what would you have to think about this?
In fact, Grazia has already highlighted many of the important issues, I believe, in this respect. I would first like to thank Patrick for this significant work that he's been doing and for the invitation to be with you here at the Swiss Pavilion, Dante, and thanks to you as well. And I'm so happy to see many friends also here present in the room. Well, as an international body responsible for the field of conservation of cultural heritage, perhaps I should start with this idea of conservation. Conservation of what? Conservation for what? And conservation for whom? So perhaps the project that Patrick and his team led together with the partners, which I really enjoyed actually listening to, and the various facets of this project, especially in relation to the communities and to the refugee camp, etc., are really important. I think what I take from all these discussions are few keywords, Dante. I think we need to think about conservation conservation in a broader sense, where we have preservation of the tangible, the case of Belchamin and other monuments in Palmyra, but also conservation of the meaning and the message. I think that was also mentioned in some of the presentations. And this meaning and the message requires communication, promotion, education. So I think there are two facets here to the tangible as well as the intangible. And I actually feel that it is really important in projects like these to see how we could bridge this tangible aspects with the intangible aspects. I mean, here we have seen the embroidery, which is the intangible skills and traditional practices, etc., that are inspired to preserve the memory. So I think when we talk about the memory and the message, I think we are also talking about these links. So I think this is, in a nutshell, what I can say that is really important. But I think one of the most important things of other keywords that you have been used are also the education of the youth, and I think the youth is the next generation and the young people, but also in relation to the importance of documentation. And I want to highlight what Grazia mentioned. In fact, I asked her the same question a few days ago. It's really important to understand the objective for which we do documentation. And I think, as I mentioned now, there are two different objectives. One is to communicate these messages and engage the public, and one is also to preserve the monuments before, so that we have the right record in order to reconstruct, for example, the monument. So I think, in a nutshell, this is what I can say, Dante.
Thank you very much, Zaki. Esra, you're a complementary side of cultural heritage from the ICRC, who has been promoting international humanitarian law since 1863. Now, when you hear this from the ICRC point of view, acting in areas of conflict and preserving this, what is your view on cultural heritage? Maybe you can present it.
Sure. Actually, of course, we can't start talking about the link between the ICRC and this topic without talking about the legal basis, which is, of course, the international humanitarian law, as we are the guardians. So it's our role to promote it. how we promote it, of course, we discuss with the countries, with nations. We work on the ratification. Ratification is not important. I mean, it's important, but it's not the final, it's not a name in itself. Without domestication of the body of laws to the national law, a ratification law, and we have a lot of countries that just ratified treaties, but it's not enough. So we work a lot with countries, with human rights committees, with international humanitarian law committees in every single country to promote, to raise awareness, because it has an impact on the prevention. I think we won't be here today if all the parties involved in a conflict respected the rules of war. They did not target cultural monuments, historical sites. Unfortunately, it's not the case. This is why we are here. But again, now it's not only the issue. We are facing different kind of war and conflicts, I would say, not only the proliferation as it is, but new parties, armed groups. We also have to discuss with armed groups about international humanitarian laws, and this is also part of the education, and I will come back to the education part in this topic. Now, of course, we have countries. We are not doing war as we used to do it 50 years ago. We have proxy wars, we have groups, but we still need to engage with them to promote international humanitarian law. So this is a very important aspect. The second aspect, it's the nexus, humanitarian development piece. And I think this is also one of the angles. I think 30 years ago, if one of the ICRC colleagues had been sitting here, they would just tackle the issue from the IHL perspective. But actually now, with this new word, I would say, it goes beyond this. What I mean by this, it's now the ICRC have been operating in a context for more than 20 years, 30 years. You cannot do humanitarian relief for 5-10 years. It has to go beyond this. And I think this is the idea of the nexus. It's not phases. It's not humanitarian phase, development, and peace. Cultural heritage, it's very important to go beyond this humanitarian phase when, the ICRC has to provide healthcare, has to provide essential items, but then it comes from the people themselves. It's not the ICRC. It's not that we wake up in the morning and say cultural heritage is important beyond the IHL. No, they were the ones coming to us. I think I've been lucky to work in lots of conflict areas, and I think if there's something that skipped always in my mind, I remember I was in Mosul in 2017, and saw this old lady. She was crying, and we have been talking to all the communities, and so when I approached her, she was like, they bombed the souk. It's a souk. It's like the souk, it has been there for, I think, 8 centuries or something. So I was a little bit shocked because it's not what I expected as a reaction with all this destruction. And I said, okay, do you have other things that, yeah, I lost my son, but it's war. It's expected to lose a son. But I think she was more concerned or less expecting that bombing a souk for her, it was as important as losing a son. And I think in 2016, the ICRC did a survey, and I will come back to Grazia for the survey because it's quite important. The ICRC, we are lucky as we operate often in a conflict zone and we are close to the affected communities. So it's not pretentious, but we know what we are talking about. So when we had the survey for 17,000 persons, actually 70% mentioned that cultural heritage as important, but 80% living in a conflict zone said that it's of the utmost importance. So they put it as the same level that distributed relief and education and cultural heritage. So I think this is quite important because the nature of war, who we are, it makes that we can't just close our eyes and say, for instance, cultural heritage, it's for UNESCO. Just an anecdote this morning, I was about to leave the house and my dad, he was telling me, okay, it's Saturday, where are you going? So I said, yeah, I have this conference about cultural heritage. He's like, yeah, but this is the work of UNESCO. I really hope that when we finish this, we know that it's not the work of UNESCO. I mean, it's it's a partnership. It's something that no single organization can fill the gap. It's the work of Grazia. It's the work of ICROM. It's the ICRC. It's really more complex than this because the needs are huge. And I really want also to salute the initiatives of lots of countries like UAE, France, the Ali Foundation. The work, we need all the hands of the words. I think this is the important also part, is that, of course, we have the prevention, the education. I would say that it's not us, who have to educate the refugees. I think the refugees educated us on this thematic. But also the partnership. Partnership to tackle this issue is of key importance. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Esra. Oh, yes, of course.
Well, thank you, Esra. I have to mention, in fact, we had an event together with the ICRC a few weeks ago, and I think what Esra was mentioning is this human dimension that is really important in our work, and I tried to highlight it through the memory, through the messages, through the connections that people have to cultural heritage. And I think more than that, I think there is this building peace idea through cultural heritage, because the intangible cultural heritage is what unite people, and the shared heritage bring people together, and it is a source of reconciliation in torn societies. So I wanted also to highlight that aspect, to highlight what Esra was saying, and I think in our work we have to look at the bigger scope. Although I mentioned, the very specialized aspects of our work, but I think it's really important to think in a global sense, and I really want to highlight the fact that as well, I totally agree that one organization cannot do all the job. I think we need to be together to fill the gaps, and I think there is a role for each entity and each organization, each partner, as we saw in this project. And this is actually maybe one of the learnings that we have from this project. Each partner can play a major role. Yeah.
Thank you, Zaki.
May I say something?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Just I would like to underline again, because this is my rule, the rule of technologies also in this part, because for example, mapping a thematic. I already did this example in Cyprus. We were mapping in the two parts of Cyprus the coffee. Which kind of coffee they were preparing, Greek coffee or Turkish coffee? Of course, they are the same. They are the same, but that made the people together, and we were like joking with this. And we, at the end, we prepared our map and we acquired our data. It's another way to stay together. And technology is very, very simple nowadays to use, even with mobile phone, even with also laser scanner. Of course, this doesn't mean that the result will be useful for scientific purposes, but these are two different ways. Also a way to stay together, to communicate together, and to know each other better, and to focus on cultural heritage, our identity.
Thank you, Grazia. So, if I may, I can see really a pattern, a constellation here, which is a vertical integration looking at cultural heritage. So, upstream, ahead, prevention, and downstream, responding to the needs, but also a horizontal integration with different parties from conservation, the humanitarian parties, and also science. In your opinion, how come these different partnerships are now emerging? What is the trigger? I mean, as you were saying, Esra, beforehand, a lot of people were thinking in clusters, UNESCO looking at UNESCO. How come there is this integration happening, according to you?
I would think, talking about this holistic approach, how we can tackle this issue, basically it's the needs. When we started in 2016, the international community started talking about the nexus, humanitarian development, and now we are talking about the triple nexus, adding the peace on it. Cultural heritage is, as I said, with a number of conflicts right now. If we think in a sectorial mind, and like you are a humanitarian organization, you are development, you are peace, actually the reality shows that it's not the case. It's not black and white. You have this linear approach, and sometimes you go through gray zone, then you come back, have conflict again, you have a kind of kind of piece, So it's, I would say it's the needs. Funding, it's an issue also because probably this was the idea of the donors. The needs are huge, and it's not that one sector can solve all the problem. So if we don't go beyond the sectorial approach in the cultural heritage, actually, it's about a collective identity. It's about the memory. It's not about the past or the present. It's about the future, and this is why it has a specific importance for the people, because it's part of the resilience, it's part of the post-conflict reconstruction, how they see themselves, how they see themselves in the future. Actually, one thing that I forgot to mention about the lady I saw in Mosul, she mentioned something like she woke up in a complete amnesia, and she was so scared about it. Because true, when you have been in a place and you see something for, 80 years, out of the sudden, if you don't find it, it's like you're waking up without an arm or the neck. It's equivalent like losing a part of your family. So, and we have seen it also with the IDPs. Something that encourages people to return is when sites have been restricted, because it gives a lot of signs. It gives a sign that now you are accepted, now you have a place in the society. It's as important as bringing back water and electricity to a community. Often we think the most important part to bring people back is just, school, electricity, water, but honestly it goes beyond that. And if we don't understand it, we will miss the picture.
Zaki?
If I may add, I think coming back to what Esra and also Grazia mentioned, I think this holistic approach is quite important, like to have a vision, of what we are all doing together in what we might call recovery. And I like to use the word recovery more than reconstruction, because recovery means is recovery of people and recovery of society and culture. And I think culture play an important role, is a key element, a key fundamental role in bringing this back. The mention of the souk is quite a very good example. Also in the meeting for Syria a few days ago, the souk, in fact, of Al-Saqtiya souk, and then the project that have been done by the local communities in Aleppo, were actually the trigger to bring people back and bring the hope actually to communities. So I think it is really important to think about this idea of community living culture and livelihoods through preservation of monuments and based on rigorous documentation and understanding. Really, the word understanding is also important, understanding what we really mean that this cultural heritage can provide to such conflict areas, especially in places where you have living cultures and like cities like Mosul, Esra mentioned. This is really important. But actually, even for Palmyra, I think Palmyra had its own people that they had this association with the monuments, and also it's a source of pride for them and a source of living as well. So in a way, we should not really exclude that only that is really applicable to historic cities, but also for archaeological sites, because people really associate and affiliate with the stories of people, even from the past, for their future. And again, I want to highlight this idea that by doing so, we think always about the future, not only about the past.
Thank you, Zaki. I just want to. We have this nexus that we're developing. Grazia, I promise you'll have the occasion to speak later on. I know we have an audience of various countries, including from Italy, from UAE, from Benin. I was wondering if you can also see this approach, this diversity in partnerships to preserve cultural heritage. I'm not sure if any of you would like to comment and maybe mention a few words about your different countries or different geographical areas. Oh, Carole? Oh. Damien? Oh. Could you bring the... Oh.
I can speak loud.
Oh, no, it's for the...
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I wanted to say that all those projects of digital art, They are so meaningful, they are so accurate, because it gives people, and especially youth person, the opportunity to share their own vision, their own idea of their cultural heritage of their country, and they can use their skill, they can use their imagination to preserve this culture. So it makes it like something intangible, no, something tangible, plutôt, and it's like it's everlasting. The cultural heritage now is everlasting. In Benin, we have a very rich cultural heritage. We have ancient kingdoms from north to south. We have the slave routes. So I think, thanks God, this is not, there is no destruction by human being, but we have destruction by time. And if we don't preserve all this material, it's going to disappear. So I think it's a very good idea to use digital technique to help people to preserve for the future, like you said, all their cultural heritage. And I think we will think more of this kind of perspective. When I'll be back in Benin, I'll talk about all this. Really, it's very, very interesting. Thank you.
Okay. Grazia, you wanted to...
No, just I wanted to add something about your question before. I think that cultural heritage is the interdisciplinarity in cultural heritage is mandatory. We cannot do anything alone. And now we are, for example, now in Italy, we are just in these days, we are organizing a new PhD on heritage science. And from the top, they told us that we have to include in the project all the three areas: sociological areas, technological and scientific area, and humanistic area. Because there is no cultural heritage if we don't have all these parts. And this is reflected also in the technology, again. Because, for example, what is BIM or GIS? Is just something for collecting, for managing, something that in the past was made by single people, single experts. Now we have the chance to collect all the data together. And this is not just because we want to use a new technology, but because this is a need to share information and to share knowledge, and also to have the possibility to have the best documentation for reconstruction, restoration, conservation, and also for communication. That's it.
Thank you, Grazia.
Thank you to you.
My pleasure. So we're gently going to reach the conclusion of this event. Oh, Mr. Hamadi, yes, please.
I'm just wondering, because we did have an experience in Iraq, and as Esra mentioned, that it's not UNESCO work only. So I'm wondering, is there any meeting between the international organizations for this? For example, ICROM involved. Why? Because I know he's my friend, Zaki, and he's based here in UAE, in Sharjah. But is there any international, let's say, conference or seminar, whatever, that mentioning all this work, that we should work together? I mean, when we went to the UNESCO, between two brackets, they haven't mentioned it. Any organization that related to the cultural heritage. So, just a question.
Esra.
Actually, we signed an MOU with UNESCO in 2016. Basically, due to this need that we are witnessing something on the ground, and we felt the responsibility that should be shared with the wider large of community. So yeah, we signed an MOU with UNESCO in that regard. We also signed an MOU with Blue Shields we are working with different universities, different private sector, different countries that they have an interest in this specific topic. We are doing actually our own conferences, like the last one was in 2020 in Asia, with different countries, between the link between the IHL, International Humanitarian Law, and culture property. Honestly, I did not hear anything about a general conference. Maybe this is what I'm missing. But I think from each one of us, we are just signing MOU, working still in this mindset bilaterally, I would say, rather than go beyond this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, the issue of coordination is really important. In fact, we addressed it even in the conference last week. Coordination about the different actors and the international bodies in particular. In the past, I mean, there has been a lot of efforts from UNESCO to make such kind of coordination by involving the different organizations. And as Esra mentioned, each organization must have, like ICROM, for example, we have also MOUs with the different partners, and we hopefully will have one with ICRC. But we have with others. So, but I think this question is very, very valid, because how effective that is quite important. I know that it happened. I attended several meetings of coordination at UNESCO in Paris, but the problem, I still feel that how that is taken forward, you know, and how that could be implemented. We led, for example, an activity with UNESCO for Libya, just to give you an example, and we provided with them also an action plan with various actors, roles, who can do what, etc. But I think the problem is that when with the reflection on this, I think it's really important to reflect together with UNESCO and other organizations how we should plan this in a more effective and efficient way in the future.
Thank you, Zaki. So I think I'd like to just say a few concluding remarks and also invite Patrick to say a few words. Grazia, you said cultural heritage, multidisciplinarity is mandatory. I really like that, and I think this really sums up this. And I think the fruit of this can be seen in the booklet on Palmyra that Patrick and the colleagues developed. And I think this is really, really important, and also from the colleagues from IULM in Milano and InZone in Geneva. Before we conclude, lunch will be served, by the way, afterwards. Patrick, would you like to say a few concluding remarks?
Thank you very much. The thing I really liked about the discussion is what you were speaking about this new PhD in Italy, and you mentioned humanistic, science, technology, and sociology, and for everybody who was there from the very beginning of the presentation, this is exactly what we try in this project. So we hired a sociologist. I'm a historian archaeologist myself, and the social impact was very, very important. So it's always very emotional to speak about this project. Being half Lebanese myself, I do remember the war when I was a child in Beirut, and obviously what I put inside this project is a part of myself, and this is a way for me to give back this history to the people in need of that today. But the wish today is that kind of project could give new ideas. I was pleased to hear that it can inspire you for what you can do in Benin, and this is what is so interesting and so important in that kind of thing, when you try to put all the different people together. And we were very lucky because it was by meeting people by chance that we could develop level after level this project. And the concrete thing now is the publication of this booklet. You all have a copy of it, so we have 1,000 copies, and we hope to be able to spread it to everyone who will be able to use it, and we are happy to help and to work with other people on other projects to give the possibility to people to try to benefit from this experience. Has been now a 4 years project. I do really thank Dante and the SwissNext to give the possibility to present this project twice in 2 different modes here in the UAE, because it was very important also to speak in the Arab word of this project in Arab language. That is the reason why we publish it, because we are closer to these people, and I really hope to be then able to be in Jordan myself after COVID-19. And thank you for all the insight from the CICR, so the Red Cross, for your expertise on the field, and how cultural heritage is now a new dimension that is really part of the nexus that you have spoken about, and the collaboration with ICROM as well, and very interesting talk that we have with Grazia, because we share the same idea of the use of technology. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, Dante and SwissNext and the Swiss Pavilion.
Thank you, Patrick. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming today on a Saturday. I'm really impressed that we made it on a Saturday. Lunch will be served here. You're free to eat it also outside, but it's quite warm, so you're also free to eat it here. This has been our last event at the Swiss Pavilion, and it has been an honor to host you all. Thank you very much to our esteemed panelists. Thank you very much to the people joining online, IULM in Milano, InZone, and also our colleagues from Care International. Thank you very much to our colleagues from the Italian Pavilion for helping us to collaborate. Thank you very much, Commissioner Gentiloni Gententi for being here with us. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Thank you.